Hey everybody, welcome back to Grain-Free Homestead. Today we're going to do something probably a little different than you've seen it done before, but it is the way that I'm doing it. I've been at work all day, I have to work tomorrow, so I need to can my tomatoes, and I like thick tomato sauce, like crushed tomato consistency when I cook. I don't like tomato juice, we don't drink it. I don't like whole tomatoes. I like crushed tomatoes. So I haven't been able to can the tomatoes right when the tomatoes have been coming in because we've had other stuff going on. We had birthdays in the family, vacation, just other stuff going on. So as I get the tomatoes and the ones that we're not eating fresh, I've been throwing them in the freezer. So they're whole, they're washed, and they're whole. And I'll show you, here's some of them here. I have a whole bunch. See the bags? They're like hard as a rock, so what I'm gonna do is normally when you go to get the skins off of tomatoes, you kind of like slice the bottom of them and throw them in hot boiling water. The skin pops off, you core it, and you're done. When you freeze them, it is a little bit different, and I think that it's easier as long as you have enough frozen tomatoes. So when you have frozen tomatoes, we just got the sink nice and clean and sanitized. I'm actually going to put the frozen tomatoes in here and pour hot boiling water on them, and they almost split instantly. So then I core them, and then they're going to go in the roaster. This is my secret. This is my secret for the thick crushed tomato sauce. If you've ever watched Living Traditions Homestead with Kevin and Sarah, she has a great video step by step on how to get thick sauce. I've been making tomato sauce for years, and I liked it, but I used it in soups and different things like that. And this is like what you buy at the store in a can. It's nice and thick. I use it for everything. So what I'm gonna do is once I get them cored, then I'll core them, get the skin off. They go in here, and they're actually going to cook all night tonight and maybe through the day tomorrow. So the water kind of evaporates, or you can ladle the water off as the water comes to the top, and it's that clearish, like greenish, orangish water. If you've ever done tomatoes, you know what I'm talking about. And then you just take the tomatoes out and blend them up in a blender and can them like normal. So I'm going to show you guys what I do. We're just going to do it in fast motion here, and it's just another way to do tomatoes. You don't always have to have fresh tomatoes because sometimes time doesn't allow for it. Sometimes life is happening. I know for us, like they're outside right now picking the garden. So we spend, a couple hours a night picking the garden, and there isn't always time to process everything. So being able to fill up bags of tomatoes in the freezer and then saving them for a day later in the week is very helpful for us. Okay, so I have a load of the frozen tomatoes in the sink. I'm getting ready to pour the boiling water over top of them. Make sure that the sink is plugged up. So I'm going to bring you down closer so that you can see how easily the skin came off. So instantly, see how the skins start coming off? So they start popping like instantly. So some of these I will push down. Be careful, it is boiling water. But these are like the ice cubes it's kind of like the opposite here. So as soon as you do that, the skins are ready to go. I will transfer them into this sink here, I have another box of frozen tomatoes. I'm gonna get them in that water, and we'll just keep doing that.
I hate to be one of them tomatoes.
Don't forget to refill the canner so that you've got more water if you need it. Alrighty, so I got all those tomatoes skinned and cored and they're in the roaster, and I have a few more, about 15 or so good sized tomatoes left to fill the roaster up. I'm waiting on this water to get to boiling so that I can pour it on there and then get the roaster all filled up. When you do it this way with the frozen tomatoes, sometimes the tomatoes they are frozen, and even though you're pouring the boiling water over them, they can still be really cold on your fingers when you're coring them. So I like to let them sit in the water for 4 or 5 minutes, and then put them in the empty sink and let them sit while I'm working on other things, just for a few minutes, not like a half an hour or anything like that. Just 4 or 5 minutes, let them thaw a little bit. The knife goes through them easier, and then you can throw them straight in the roaster. Alright, my water's almost done, so I'm going to get these other ones in the roaster. Okay, so I've got all my tomatoes done. I just got to cut some in half, just to make it easier for them to cook down. And then we're going to let these guys roast overnight. I do it on about between 250 and 300, I guess about 275. I'll check the water, kind of ladle some of the water when it comes to the top. I'll ladle that off every once in a while. And then the next time I see you, we'll be ready to get these tomatoes in the canner, and I'll show you how I do that. Hey guys, so it's been 24 hours. I just got home from work again, and I want to show you guys what we've got going on with the tomatoes. I'm going to turn it around so you guys can see. So the tomatoes have been in the roaster here all night long. I keep them between 250 and 300. Here's my bowl here with a ladle. I'm going to show you guys how much it's cooked down. Let me get the lid off. So as you can see, they've cooked down quite a bit, but I wanted to show you the process of what I do. You can kind of see that water in there. So the water will build up on the sides, and you kind of push it down, and it should be a clearish. You don't want, tomato juice. You just want the watery stuff. Like here's some here. You just want to ladle that watery stuff off. And once you do that, and it's quite a bit of water, you guys see how much it's cooked down. Then the next step, will be to ladle the tomatoes into the blender and blend them up really good. And then we're going to jar them up, and it's time to can them. Alrighty guys, we're to the point now. I showed you a minute ago what it kind of looks like. I'm just going to ladle the hot, you can see how hot they are. I'm going to ladle them into my blender. is a little bit of liquid left because I want the sauce to be pourable. I don't want it to be a solid. So do leave a little bit of liquid in there. And I'm not using any kind of special blender. Ours is a Ninja, but I would think any kind of blender would work. It doesn't have to be a Vitamix or anything like that. Okay, we're gonna get the lid on. So from the blender, we're gonna pour it straight into our canning jars. They're warm. They've been sanitized, they've been in here. And you're just gonna pour it straight into your jar. It's kind of messy. You guys can kind of see how thick it is. It's just like crushed tomatoes, which that's what I prefer in my chilies and sauces. So I ended up with 5 quarts and 1 pint of our tomato sauce. And so what you have to add to tomatoes is acid. Just because the acidity of homegrown tomatoes isn't consistent, you can add citric acid or lemon juice. And I have both. I just like lemon juice. If I have lemon juice, I'll probably use it before citric acid. For pints, it's 1 tablespoon. I'm gonna go ahead and get that one out of the way. Pour it in there. For quarts, it's 2 tablespoons. Okay, so the next thing to add is salt. You don't have to add salt. It is in most of the recipes that you see just for canning tomatoes. But if you can't have sodium or something like that, you don't have to add it. So it's 1/2 teaspoon per pint and 1 teaspoon per quart. And my salt, it is pink Himalayan salt. I get that from Azure Standard, where we get our bulk spices and different pantry items. Okay, I'm just going to stir all this together. I always use the spoon, but you can use a chopstick, whatever you have that works. Now I am using the water bath canner today. You can pressure can tomatoes if you would like. we've kind of got a lot going on, and when I can't sit here and babysit pressure canner, I would much rather use the water bath canner, so that's what I'm gonna do. Quarts are 45 minutes of process time, and pints are 40, so we're gonna do 45 since we've got mostly quarts. So your process time begins when you get your jars in here, and it begins boiling. When it comes back up to a boil, that's when your process time starts. We're going to wipe the rims of our jars. I've already checked them to make sure that there's no chips or anything in the glass that would keep them from sealing. So we're just wiping off anything that would be on the rim that might prevent a good seal. I already have the lids and rings together, so you don't have to soak these anymore. I'm sure that you still could do warm water, but the new recommendations from Ball is just to make sure that they're clean, and you just lid them. So remember, it's finger tight. You don't want to get it on there super tight. You want the air to be able to come out in between the two-piece lid. And then that's why you hear that seal pop once you get them out. Okay, so these jars are hot because the liquid was hot, so it's hot jars going into hot water. Now, since I already have my roaster dirty, it's already got tomatoes in it, I'm gonna go ahead and just like I did earlier, I had froze some tomatoes yesterday, so I'm gonna go ahead and get those peeled and get some more going in the roaster so that I can do this again tomorrow, hopefully. When we hear that start boiling and see the steam coming out, that's when our process time will start. Okay, so we've moved on to getting more tomatoes into our roaster. Yesterday I froze some, and when I went to get them out, which they're right here, they're frozen hard, I was thinking to myself, why didn't I just core these before I put them in the freezer? And the only thing I would have to do is put the frozen tomatoes in here, pour the hot water, and just skin them. I wouldn't have to be messing with a hot or a cold tomato trying to core it, which is what I'm gonna have to do with these guys and what I did with the ones already made. So, I've been doing this for years, and I don't know, for some reason, it never occurred to me to core them first. So that's what I'm starting to do now. I've already got some going here. I'm gonna core them. This is a strawberry huller. I got it off of Amazon. It makes coring these super simple when they're fresh like this. You just put it in there, kind of spin it around, and then it just pops right out. So if I freeze these like this, when I put these in the sink and I pour the boiling water on them when they're frozen, the skins should split, and I should just be able to take the skin right off and throw them in the roaster. Kind of kicking myself for not doing that yesterday because I'm going to have to mess with the frozen ones here in a minute. And while that's not bad, it just is time consuming. Whereas, see how fast this is? So I think that we're always learning when you're canning, gardening, processing of any kind. You can always add to your methods or the way you do things. And I'm sure there's people out there that are like, I do this all the time. Why haven't you thought of this? I don't know why. just haven't. So, but from now on, this will be part of my process. I will do this first, because you see how quickly I'm doing this versus when they're frozen, or even when you do it the other way, even when the tomatoes are hot, you're still having to handle the hot tomato. So either way, this is just way easier. And if you don't have one of these little guys, I really highly recommend it. I got this off of Amazon. I think it was a 2-pack or something. Extremely cheap, under $10. I think it was like $7 for 2 of them. And it makes coring these super, super quick and simple. Okay guys, so these are the tomatoes that I cored first. I didn't freeze them. I had my frozen tomatoes and I needed more to fill up the roaster. So I did the boiling water method on the ones that cored. So I am so excited because I want to show you guys how easy it is. And whether you're going to freeze them or you're going to do them, you know, in boiling water, whichever way you do it, I want you to see how easy it is. See, it's already cored, and all I'm doing is just taking the skin off. It's so stinking easy. And that's it, because it's already cored. So all I got to do is just squeeze the skin off. It's already cored, throw it in there. It was definitely worth just the few minutes it took to core them first. And I'm not messing with having to core them right now. It's just so much easier. And I wanted to show you guys that. It will save you so much time and energy and back pain. It just comes right off. I don't have to mess with a knife while my hands are wet or any kind of thing like that. I'm just taking the skin off and throwing it in the roaster. Something I feel like I should show you. I was in the middle of doing it, and I'm like, I should put this in here in case some of you guys have never done this before, or maybe you've only done it a couple times and you didn't know to do it. So let me move the camera and let me show you guys what I'm doing. I'm getting ready for the next load, but I'm wiping my jars first. So I'm wiping, a lot of times when you make tomatoes, it gets kind of sticky. It'll get like just like a tomatoey residue when you're done, when you're finished canning. So these have been sitting since yesterday. You guys can, I don't know if you can see, that sauce is gonna be beautiful and thick, really thick, like crushed tomatoes, and that's what I like. But while I've got jars in here sanitizing, and I'm getting ready to blend up some more tomatoes to can tonight, I'm wiping off. You can kind of see the residue that kind of comes off. It's kind of sticky, feels almost sugary like on here. And I like to go ahead and get it off that way, because it can actually rust these, or if you were to have a lid on there, it can rust your lid. But I just don't want to get any kind of sticky, gooey stuff, you know, down in our canning area on the shelves or anything like that. So I always wipe in here really good to make sure, because I've had it turn, see how that came off? I've had it turn, you know, kind of black or just a real dark color later on, and it's kind of gross, and, you know, I don't want to question anything. So I just make sure I get them good and clean and wipe my jars off. And that's with anything that I've canned. Pickles are probably the easiest because it's vinegar based, so it's already kind of clean, but everything else I wipe off and make sure, and that way it's good and clean when it's down there on your shelves. And then, especially with tomatoes, I always end up with sticky stuff in the rings, so I'll go ahead and wash those before I even put them away. So I'm just wiping it really good. I'm still working on my second round of tomato sauce. So I'm just adding in my lemon juice and salt first this time. It doesn't really matter when you do it. I just wanted to talk a little bit while I was doing this about if you've never canned before, or if you're nervous about canning. I think everybody is at first. I've been canning a long time. I was canning when canning wasn't cool. I can remember being you know, early 20s and calling my grandma 20 times, asking her, you know, am I doing this right, or does this sound right, or does this look right? And she was always there to help me. And I just encourage you, if you don't have somebody, it's okay, because they have something awesome now that I didn't have then, and that is YouTube. There's so many good resources out there to help you, guide you through canning. There's lots of books, lots of websites, lots of Facebook groups where you can ask questions, and I just encourage you to use those tools. Once you get canning under your belt, even when I do a new recipe, you know, I get a little bit nervous about it, and I think that's just normal, because you're doing something new. You're putting a lot of time and energy and effort into it, and you want it to be good. You want it to taste good. You don't want to waste your time or your resources or whatever you're doing, green beans, tomatoes, whatever it is. You're not going to want to waste it. So just take your time. Start with something easy, maybe pickles or jam. If you're going to do tomatoes, maybe join up with somebody that you know that does it, and go over to their house and help them and watch and see the things that they do and how they do it. And that does help a whole lot. I used to watch both of my grandmothers can when I was little, and it helped me to understand, you know, kind of the process of what was going on. But it wasn't until I got into my own kitchen and got my feet wet, so to speak, and you just kind of get in there and do it. Don't be afraid. If you have questions, ask questions. Yeah, that's it. Let's get with these tomatoes. Already got some out of the roaster and pureed them up in the blender, so I'm going to start filling up my jars. Okay, while I've got you on here, I might as well show you. I heard a noise, and I set these in the rack so they're sitting on top. This water is not even boiling, and these jars are hot because the tomatoes were hot. However, every once in a while, you will hear a noise. Sometimes it's a crack noise, sometimes it's a kaboom noise. It makes different noises. I heard it do it, so I'm gonna pause everything really quick. It's this jar here. Let's see if I can get it out and show you. I don't want it to bust everywhere. The very bottom, I can see a crack. So I'm going to try and get that open so that I don't lose the contents of the jar, and get that into another sanitized jar really quick. Okay, let me see if you guys can see this. I don't know. It's right here is a hairline crack. Can you see that right there? And this is one of my Atlas jars, which is one of my favorites. I won't even pressure can my Atlases because I'm afraid something's gonna happen to them. Stuff just happens sometimes. It's gonna happen. So just because it happens doesn't mean you did something wrong. I had hot liquid. My jars had already been heated up. I had just gotten them out. So it just happens sometimes. So what I did is at least I didn't lose the contents. Sometimes when it cracks, it'll crack all the way around and the bottom falls out and you lose all the contents down in your canner, which really stinks. I've had that happen with pickles. It happens more with pickles than anything that I do. But I was able to get them, get the contents of this into 2 pints. So I'm going to go ahead and put one in here for now. And then I know that I've got more coming, so I'm going to save this one for in a little bit and can it in a minute. So your processing time, once again, doesn't start until this is to a full boil and like you see it start to steam out. That's when your process time starts. I'm doing quarts, so that's 45 minutes. Pints would be 40 minutes. But so if you have mixed quarts and pints together, always go with the processing time of the bigger size. Okay guys, here we go. This is after 2 days of canning tomatoes. I'm wiping off my last jar now, getting it good and clean, getting some of that sticky stuff off that likes to build up on them. And this is what I got. I got 12 quarts and 5 pints of the tomato sauce. I'm gonna see if I can get real close so you can see how thick it is. There was a jar here that showed it really good. Wait a minute, there's stuff on there. Let's see. There. You can kind of see how thick that is. It's like crushed tomatoes. You can adjust the thickness to your preference. That is a different way of making tomato sauce. It basically just, I skin it and I put it in the roaster. It cooks more than overnight. It cooks all night and the whole day while I'm at work. And then when I come home, I get them in the blender and then I just can them up in the canner. You could use certain blenders. People don't take the peels and stuff off. I like to take the peels off. That's just the way that I prefer to do it. We also tried, the frozen tomatoes versus fresh tomatoes. I'm okay either way. I think I still like working with fresh tomatoes better than frozen, but sometimes you just do what you got to do. If you're trying to save up tomatoes and you need to freeze them till you have enough, or sometimes you just can't can right now when all these tomatoes are coming in. It just isn't possible. We all have things going on and we're all doing things, so we just have to do what works. I do know that I from now on, before I blanch them, to get the skins off, or before I freeze them, I will be coring them with that strawberry core. Just to have that taken off, that was very, very, very helpful. So I know for sure that I will be coring before freezing or before blanching the skins off from now on. So I hope this encourages you guys. This is, more food in our pantry that we'll have for this winter. I'll probably make a couple more batches of sauce, but first I've got to make salsa. So salsa has to come next, and then I'm just kind of basing it, make sure I have enough tomatoes, and the last tomatoes will be more tomato sauce. We've got some marinara to make, and that'll probably be it with our tomatoes this year. Guys, we appreciate you coming along. I hope you learned something. I hope this helps give you a different perspective maybe, or a different way of doing things. I always like watching other people. It helps to get ideas and to get new methods, or maybe organize different, something like that. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Give us a like or subscribe if you do, and we'll see you on the next one. God bless.